In a basement build, you almost never get to touch the floor above your ceiling. So that leads to a bunch of compromises that always lead to less than ideal sound isolation. What I want to talk about today is looking at 3 different example projects we have worked on recently at SPYS Designs at our design firm here, and walk you through the decision-making process that we have to go through on every single ceiling design that we work with, especially in a basement, but also in other parts of the home as well. All right, let's dive in. So one of the things I want to notice here is I've highlighted a few places in this paper. The National Research Council of Canada has done the most research into sound isolation in residential construction out of any organization. So they're actually a great free resource for looking into, meeting code for Canada, but also works for the rest of the country or the rest of the world to a certain degree. But anyways, the main thing I wanted to say is that the key factor in increasing sound isolation in joist floors is the independent or resilient support of the gypsum board ceiling from the joists. So keep that in mind. We can't just attach drywall directly to the joists. That won't work. The most important factor is the total mass per unit area of the subfloor and ceiling layers. So notice how they talked about subfloor. That's super important because the subfloor is that layer that goes below your actual finished floor on your floor above your studio ceiling or soundproof room ceiling. The other thing I want to point out is that it's also clear that without resilient metal channels or the equivalent, an STC of 50 can only be attained. And STC of 50 is not what we shoot for with studio construction or needing high SPL, drummers, hi-fi listening rooms, heavy bass. All that stuff would not be acceptable at STC 50. And it's important to remember that most of the research that's being done is for residential rooms only, and it's usually dealing with TVs, speech, regular home type sounds, not recording studios or home theaters or something like that. Another really interesting thing that's kind of a side note that I found that was cool is that the STC rating difference between plywood and OSB was staggering. OSB as a subfloor layer is actually better than plywood, so just an interesting fact that I found very fascinating because I honestly always thought plywood was better because it didn't have as many air holes in the like OSB might have, but OSB performed better. And then another interesting thing is that joist depth and spacing doesn't increase STC that much. And on average, 100 millimeters is needed to increase the STC by 1 point. So having a deeper air cavity, 100 millimeters is a good amount. That's about 4 inches more. Kind of getting into that idea that that'll only get you 1 point of STC, which is not going to be super big difference overall. Increasing the spacing between joists also increases the STC, but the effect is even less pronounced and very variable. So that's interesting too. And lastly, again, the metal channels and stuff like that is really important. So overall, I think that I had to actually mention this part right here. This is for all you rock wool people. I love to just rag on this channel talking about how insulation doesn't help do it alone. The research showed that putting sound absorbing material in the cavity of a joist floor with a ceiling that is directly attached to the joist provides no significant increase in sound isolation. Crazy, talk about it a lot, but you don't ever want to just rely on the insulation alone, which many contractors I talk to on the phone always use that as their go-to for sound isolation. So anyways, that is that. And then I want to show you guys something else here. So I did some research on several other papers on the internet and came up with this cool chart here that kind of talks about another thing that you're going to see in these projects, which is using dissimilar layers on the ceiling to help with isolation. And I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. And I'll actually talk about kind of the pros and cons of both. But the coincidence frequency problem is something that's real in physics. There is a natural dip in any material where the frequency vibration of the material itself with the sound wave interact to actually pass that sound through the material more easily than at other frequencies. So here you can see that at this frequency here, there's a coincidence and the sound transmission loss actually dips during that point and then increases as the frequency increases over here. This was done by NASA in 1979, which is kind of cool. Another thing here is staggering coincidence frequencies helps. So if you take differing types of materials, say plywood, MDF, and drywall, those all have different coincidence frequencies, coincident frequencies, that will help you with not having what are known as acoustic holes in your ceiling design. And that's something we sometimes talk about. Over here, increased mass is improves isolation, and we use that a lot. Increased stiffness, which is interesting, targets low frequency performance, so a stiffer material is better. Again, NASA. Dissimilar thicknesses helps with resonant points, and then composite sandwich layers, same idea. Just differing materials will help. And then, of course, resilient decoupling from the NRC article I referenced earlier is always needed. You can't just have your ceiling directly attached to the ceiling joist above. Pretty much plywood and gypsum board is what we use. 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch gypsum board is asymmetric. That's an example. And mass without decoupling, not a good idea. And this is just kind of catching up on it, and I want to show you guys my sources down here so you can see that this is coming from some real research. But same idea as I talked about earlier on this little slide here. And I wanted to say one thing that I think is really important to say. I actually don't like to use asymmetric ceiling layers, usually because of budget. So if we had to choose between 2 layers of 5/8 inch drywall and let's say like MDF and drywall or plywood and drywall, there's a lot going on there. And one of the things that's going on is the cost factor per mass. So cost per mass of different materials means we get more mass for less money. And I usually opt for that. So 2 layers of 5/8 inch drywall is giving us the most mass for our buck, so to speak. So just wanted to say that out here. The research and these NASA articles and stuff, it's like, okay, if we have an unlimited budget, sure, we're just going to layer a bunch of different materials. But coming back to reality, back down to earth, no pun intended, we do things differently. All right. And with that segue of coming back down to reality, this goes perfectly into my next section here, which is actually showing real projects. So this is a project in a basement. This shows the ceiling design. All these little dots are the acoustic clips, and the lines are the furring channel or hat channel, which we referred to in that Canadian article of decoupling. So that's what's going on here. You can see the acoustic clip, the channel, how that all works here. And then we can kind of zoom in here. And one of the interesting things about this design that was really challenging is, again, we couldn't get the floor above as part of this design. So you can see right here, these are TGI joists. For those of you who don't know, in construction, TGI joists are these pre-engineered beams that are really strong, really great, but we couldn't touch the floor above. Per that Canadian article, it would have been awesome to have like another layer of, subfloor and have control over that. But if you have a hardwood floor and a subfloor like this client has, that's actually better than like a laminate floor and a really flimsy subfloor. There are things going in our favor, but this client really wanted to, play drums. They have a Dolby Atmos system in this room, and then they also are going to play electric guitar very loud for fun as well. So I wanted to go as hardcore as I could with my ceiling. So I've got the metal furring clips. I've got the plywood layer first here, and then the 3 layers of drywall after that. What that is doing, just so you guys understand, is the plywood is serving 2 purposes. Yes, it's a differentiating mass, so it helps with that coincidence effect that I talked about earlier, but it also has a practical reason, which is when you start learning about 3 layers of drywall, it's very easily to miss where your channels are. And so having screws that go into the plywood is actually a helpful thing with holding all the layers together as well. So just an added bonus there, but it also has a benefit of being a different type of mass. So this ceiling had a lot of different things we had to work through. It shows how the real world plays very differently than the research papers. There's always way more that we have to consider if we're not building from the ground up. All right, this next project is super fascinating. This is actually the best type of ceiling you can build. It's what we call an independently framed ceiling. So rather than using resilient channel or hat channels and acoustic clips, we are actually building a brand new ceiling, as you can see underneath the existing ceiling. This client also had the TGI joists, very common in basements, and then we're putting insulation to help with the damping and resonance inside the cavity, not to help necessarily with the sound isolation itself on its own. We can't touch the floor above, which is very typical. This is like a kitchen. They're not going to redo their kitchen, but we can build a new independently framed ceiling below and have 2 layers of drywall. If you can see here, we've got that independent ceiling right here, 2 layers of drywall, and you can really see how this is going to block sound the best because there's no, we call flanking paths. There's no way sound can vibrate through the building and hit our ceiling because it never touches sonically throughout the entire building. All right, this last plan set, we'll call it Project 3, is for a client who's building a hi-fi listening room. And this one's interesting because it's actually not in a basement. This is on the first floor of a home, which we normally would never recommend, but we had these restraints that we had to deal with, and the client was aware of the restraints. Again, this is a real-world application where the textbook just doesn't work, and we used the acoustic clips. And then what's interesting here is we had, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see this better. We've got our Genie clip RSTs and our furring channel like we had in the first project. But then what's different here is we have 3/4 inch CDX sheathing, which is essentially plywood, like a higher quality plywood, 3/4 inch MDF board, which is a heavier medium density fiber board, and then 5/8 inch drywall. And what's interesting about this project is this is actually a great sound isolation system. It's also on the walls, as you can see here. But I actually did not recommend this. The client came to this because they're working with RPG Acoustics. And RPG Acoustics actually said, hey, this is what we recommend for our projects. It helps with us hanging all the acoustic treatment and stuff like that. So I said, oh yeah, that's great. If you want to do this, this is totally awesome. And if you have the budget for it, which the client had the budget for it, let's stick with that. The only thing I added was saying, hey, we're not going to go directly attached to the ceiling joist per all the research that says you shouldn't do that. That's a waste of money. You know, it's not going to get you the results. Why don't we add just this extra layer and we'll have phenomenally better results. So we did that. Kind of the interesting way that this came about. So you can see that there's so many variables here when it comes to these designs. There's both the client bringing ideas, there's the limitations of the project itself. There's me thinking through like, okay, you have a certain budget. These are the materials we're going to go with, and these are the results you can expect. So it's not clear cut, even if you know all the research and the science. One other thing about this project that I think is really cool to understand too is that when you put penetrations in your ceilings, you have to figure out how to make sure that that doesn't ruin the isolation. So this client has a very nice lighting design that was put in by a lighting designer. So we wanted to honor that, but that does create these little rectangles here, which are what we call quiet boxes. And quiet boxes are really cool. Here's an example of a side section of them. And they actually provide continuous isolation around the lighting fixture that's penetrating and making a hole in your ceiling. So you can see here, there's the quiet box right there. It's got a continuation of the ceiling. We decided to do, again, plywood and drywall because the client said, hey, does it really matter? I don't really want to have more material there. And I said, yeah, it's going to be completely fine to do 3/4 inch plywood and drywall for this design. It's not the end of the world. And so these are like the real world decisions that we have to make. The most important thing is that we're not having any flanking from the light fixture itself into the existing structure. And likewise here, there's no place the quiet box touches our ceiling because that would ruin our sound isolation. So the thing I'm really trying to drive home with this today is the idea that we can do tons of research these days. In fact, the research has dramatically shifted from when I started this company to where we are now with artificial intelligence. And it's amazing. Like the research I did for this video used to take me hours. Now it took me minutes because Gemini and Claude can find research papers and articles and combine them together and help me answer questions really quickly. But the problem is that more information is not what everybody needs. What you need is the real world experience to make decisions on the site and as you're designing that are going to help you get the end result while saving as much time and as much money as possible. And the thing that I've noticed, especially with sound isolation, is that sure, AI, you can type in how to build a soundproof room and it will give you a ton of information, but how do you parse through all that information and understand, okay, this actually makes sense, but this doesn't, and what materials do I need versus what materials do I not need, and this technique or that technique. So as you can see, it just goes down a rabbit hole of information overload, and then you are at a standstill with what to do. Ultimately, this comes down to the main decision, which is not saying, okay, I'm going to make decisions based on what's right and wrong when it comes to sound isolation. What you're really saying is, I'm going to make a decision between better and worse. And that's what my job is all day, every day with my clients, is saying, okay, we have these restrictions. What's the better decision and what's the worst decision we can make? So I want to make sure that you have the best resources possible to make the right decisions early on in your design. And I created the Soundproof site assessment specifically to help you with one of the biggest decisions you can make, which is where do you build your soundproof room? The Soundproof site assessment is really quick and easy. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes. You can click through our questionnaire and it will give you an answer as either a green light, a yellow light, or a red light in terms of move forward, cautiously move forward, or answers you provided saying, hey, you provided this saying like, hey, my ceiling height is, 8 feet. This is the thing that's holding your project back, or the fact that you can't build on a concrete slab, that's what's holding your project back here. So it's as if you had me over your shoulder, basically just saying, hey, this is what I think about your site. This is where I think things are going to be hard for you, and this is what's going to cost you more money. Do you have the option to change, or are you at least aware of the restrictions with where you want to build? All right, everybody. I hope this was illuminating into the idea that ceiling designs in particular are not just a one-size-fits-all, and that you have to look at each one individually. I want to close out by saying that I'm Wilson Harwood, the principal designer at SPYS Designs. We're a Soundproof Your Studio company, and we design how to soundproof a room properly.